As we mentioned at the top of the hour, Republicans in Congress are breaking with the president on his plan to impose tariffs on Mexico. Some are even considering taking action to block them. Earlier, I asked Tim Phillips about this. He is the president of Americans for Prosperity, a political advocacy group founded by the Koch brothers. So according to a recent press release from your organization and the Libre Initiative, you're calling on lawmakers to reclaim their constitutionally mandated authority to impose tariffs and prevent further unilateral tariff increases by the president. So do you then think that these tariffs on Mexico are not the right approach?
We don't think they're the right approach. They first and foremost hurt American consumers in the form of higher prices that they're going to be paying for the goods that come from Mexico, fruit, vegetables, everyday products, foodstuffs especially. They hurt American farmers who are going to find their markets cut off pretty quickly to Mexico for their goods. And they harm American businesses as well. You know, the trade relationship with Mexico, it benefits Mexico, and like most good relationships, it benefits us, you know, both sides as well. It's
symbiotic
a mutually beneficial relationship. And so the president is right. Mexico will be hurt, but so will we. And it's across the board. It's American consumers. And when you're talking about so much food that comes up from Mexico for our folks, those are goods that people on fixed incomes, you know, senior citizens, those who are least able to afford these higher prices. That's what tariffs are. They're going to be higher prices.
The president is hoping, however, that these tariffs will convince Mexico to help with the border immigration issues. You don't think that that would happen as a result of this?
Well, we've heard this approach before. A couple of years ago when the president was talking about steel and aluminum tariffs, a lot of folks around the administration said these are only negotiating tactics, rhetoric. We're not really going to do them. But those tariffs ended up being executed, and we now have higher prices on steel and aluminum. Then, with regard to China, the administration, the president began talking about these tariffs, and many around him said, oh, it's only a negotiating tactic. They will not actually happen. Well, they have happened. So on 2 occasions now, big occasions, the rhetoric has turned into reality. And so it's worrisome with this relationship that we have with Mexico with these tariffs. And so we hope it's just rhetoric. We do.
Right.
But it's worrisome given the track record over the last 2 years.
Well, you're not alone in being worried. We do hear that there's a group of Republicans who may be looking to block any tariffs that the president is hoping to impose on Mexico. To do that, however, it looks like they would have to nullify his emergency declaration at the border. Do you think that this is the right move for congressional Republicans, one? And two, why do you think it's been so hard for Republicans in Congress to counter the president, even at those times when he seems to be going radically against party orthodoxy?
Yeah. There have been some Republicans who've stood up and boldly said this is a bad idea. Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania is one of those Republicans, and there have been others. But the president, regardless of party, they do have a bully pulpit. That's not just a cliche, it's the reality. They have a megaphone every day to be able to dominate media coverage and a national conversation. So it is difficult, but we're urging more Republicans to step up and do the right thing on this. And you mentioned something that's so true. Free trade has been a bedrock principle in the Republican Party for a couple of decades now, going back to NAFTA and even the Reagan years before that. And so we're simply asking them, kind of go back to your bedrock principles, your roots, and do the right thing here, because trade has created more prosperity. The relationship that we've had with China, for example, it has lowered consumer prices on a range of goods. When Americans walk into Walmart's or Target's or a Dollar General, the prices they're paying are far lower than they would be without trade. You get fruit and vegetables year-round now. When I was a young guy growing up, a lot of years ago, you didn't have that. You didn't. But with free trade, you do have that. The benefits are enormous to us. And
we do know that a number of industries and trade organizations have come out against the China tariffs.
Right.
You know, you've got party members telling the president not to do this. You have trade organizations against these tariffs, industries against these tariffs. But yet it seems that the president is very enthusiastic about the idea of tariffs. Do you think that he can ever be convinced to change course?
I hope so. I've been in meetings where he has talked about this issue, and he believes he's doing the right thing. I have no doubt that he believes that. That's why I hope he'll listen to some of the arguments against this. You know, the tax cuts and the tax reform that he led on are helping generate a strong economic recovery, and they're undermining those.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's recently been reported in the New York Times and elsewhere, I believe, that the tax cuts have effectively been eliminated by the effects of the tariffs.
The New York Federal Reserve has done a study where they estimate about $414 in higher cost have been brought about in the last year for the average American family by the tariffs. So that's a big chunk of tax savings. And so you hate to see some policies like the tax cuts that are, no question, helping generate economic growth being undermined by these tariff wars that tear everyone down. Yeah, they hurt the country they're intended for. They do. No one's denying that. But they hurt Americans across the board. I was in Iowa and Wisconsin just a couple of weeks ago, and Tanya, the farmers there are hurting. They don't want to take bailouts. They're the best farmers in the world. They don't need bailouts, but they're having to take them because they're being denied access to foreign markets by our own government. That's not a good thing.
And you can see more of my interview with Tim Phillips tomorrow on Red and Blue. We'll discuss Campaign 2020 and why Americans for Prosperity says it is not backing a presidential candidate.